Well, good evening, and Eddie's experiencing a few technical difficulties at the moment. One of those computer type crashes or lockups. Anyway, he's working on it on his end, and we will move along with the show. Tonight, Poilievre secures a seat in the Commons with his by-election win, but does it prove leadership strength or just safe seat strategy? Then a U.S. state senator invites Western Canada to join the United States. Is it satire, political theater, or a warning sign of Western frustration? And finally, has common sense truly disappeared, or is it simply changing with the times? From Montreal, I'm Gary MacDonald, and this is episode 47 of Night Talk. Let's get the conversation going tonight. Share your thoughts by posting in the comments. Honest, unfiltered, Canadian, the conversation we should be having. Well, let's start off with heading out west, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre finally with a seat in the House of Commons following his by-election victory in the Alberta riding of Battle River-Crowfoot on Monday night.
Because as my mother, who's here today, taught me, when you get knocked down, you get up and you keep on going. If you believe in what you're doing, you march forward. And so I say to all of the people, not just in the great region of Battle River-Crowfoot, but right across this country, to anyone who has been knocked down, but has got back up and kept on going, you haven't given up, so I won't give up. Together, we will work together, we will fight together, we will sacrifice together to restore the opportunity that our grandparents left for us so that we can leave it for our grandchildren, so that we can once again restore a country that is strong, self-reliant, and sovereign. That is the country we're in this for. That is why we stay united. That is why we go forward. May God keep our land glorious and free. Thank you very much.
But was this just a victory or just a formality? What does it say about his future as leader with the leadership review coming up in January? Do you think winning a safe seat actually proves anything about leadership? And if you lived in Battle River-Crowfoot, would you feel represented by a parachute candidate like Poilievre? Well, there was one individual who ran as an independent. She was the first one to file and declare her intentions aside from Poilievre, and that was a woman by the name of Bonnie Critchley. She came in second on Monday night. She polled somewhere around 10% of the votes cast. Poilievre came in at around 80 or a little over 80%, which is about typical for that riding as far as the Conservatives are concerned. But Critchley had really nipped at Poilievre's behind during the campaign, and she had a few words to say the day after. She posted on Facebook, and we picked up a part of that.
I ran a campaign where I didn't lie, I didn't break the rules, and I didn't cheat. I didn't have mocked up Elections Canada signs right by the polling stations, facing the polling stations with my name on them. I didn't destroy or compromise my opponent's signs. I didn't have people spreading gross misinformation. I simply told the truth. And it is funny to me that those who most mistrust the system are the ones most willing to break it. Having a certain candidate's name circled in each of the books that had to be scrubbed clean or replaced. Or DROs handing out just the big print book with all the party names in the front and the independents all in the rear. Having sealed ballot boxes reopened after they're sealed. Having scrutineers try and twist the rules even under the noses of officials from Elections Canada. These are things that have been noted and have been reported. If you saw any irregularities while you were in the polling stations, please report them to the Commissioner for Canadian Elections. We all know he'll pay his fines and just carry on, because that's what he does. Will we ever see him here in Battle River-Crowfoot again? I highly doubt it. But you know what? I am very hopeful for us. Maybe a little less so for him, because I'm watching his national numbers continue to tank. He will never be Prime Minister because the rest of the country dislikes him so very intensely. He has got one of the lowest approval ratings of Conservative leaders in recent history. So we'll see what comes in the new year, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not done yet. This is our home. This is our riding. This is our country. I'm not done yet.
Wow. And Eddie's now with us.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're coming
wonderful.
through loud and cleared. Okay, so Eddie, we ran a clip of Poilievre on election night with his victory. And now Bonnie Critchley, who came in second, and she pulled in around, I think it was about 10% of the vote.
Right.
In what they're saying is one of the safest Conservative seats. Now, in her spiel on Facebook on Tuesday, she mentioned the fact that she is a Conservative, but she feels that Poilievre and his group have moved the party too far to the right. And she wants to bring it back. And of course, I think what you're seeing now is kind of this headbutting of the old Reform Party and the former Progressive Conservative Party. And, you know, they're a little more, well, quite a bit more to the right in Western Canada than what the Conservatives are in Eastern Canada. So she wants to see it move back more to the center. And, you know, she mentioned about the fact that we'll never see Poilievre again now that he's won the election, and he'll be in Ottawa, and that's it. And the riding won't be well represented. You know, there's a very real possibility of that. I'm sensing that Poilievre, at least initially, will try to bridge that gap to a degree. I mean, the Prime Minister still does not have a constituency office in his riding. They're looking for one now that will meet the security specifications that's required for the Prime Minister's riding office. And I get that. I honestly get that. Anyhow, Poilievre is off and running in Ottawa. He says it's good to be back. He's going to be in the Commons this fall when the House resumes. But here's the thing. He lost his seat in Carleton.
Exactly.
You know, and he lost it by 5,000 votes. There was a message there, definite message. And he comes out to, as we questioned in our opening, was it really a leadership win, or was it a safe seat strategy win? I'm leaning to the safe seat strategy win. I know he was out there for most of the summer and banging on doors and, you know, going around the riding, which is quite spread out. It's more rural than urban. But there seemed to be, as the summer wore on, I started noticing personally anyway, and the old Poilievre starting to kind of squeak through again from time to time, compared to what it was after he was humbled with the loss on election night. And although I watched some right of center coverage on election night, and one in particular who I thought did a really very good job, but sometimes they were kind of going a little too far to the right in the way they were doing it. But I mean, that's their whole
That's the region
format. Yeah, that's they do their homework. This particular couple does their homework. They know what they're talking about, and they do have some very definite opinions. But um, I don't know. Like they seem to think that Poilievre is safe now. Yeah, the caucus will welcome him back, and come late January when the leadership review is held, they're of the thinking, and some of the other conservatives who have been out in front of the microphones over the last 2 days or so seem to feel that Poilievre's leadership review in January will be basically a recoronation and reaffirmation of him as the leader.
Well, you know what, that could very well be, and a couple of thoughts, Gary, and apologies to everyone for my technical issues, but I'm here now. Very quickly, Gary. I mean, one point I'd like to bring up, you were saying that Poilievre was knocking on the doors. You know, quite honestly, desperate times require desperate measures. Wasn't this one of the reasons why he lost his election in the Carleton region? Was because the voters felt like he just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth and didn't really look after his constituents. I know he had the place for a long time. I think 15, 16, 17 years or something like that. And he lost in the last election. And a lot of the interviews I saw from the constituents were basically saying he's pretty much disappeared out of sight. So they didn't feel like that he was representing them anymore. Now, you heard Critchley, what she was saying. Is Poilievre going to basically disappear and forget about his constituents that put him into that gave him that seat now? I certainly hope he learned his lesson. So desperate times require desperate measures, and obviously he went pounding on doors in whatever barn he can get attention on. And I certainly hope it's not going to be same old. And he's learned from his experience in Ontario. Right. The second thing I wanted to point out as well is, he's going to be getting back into Parliament, House of Commons, and question period. I certainly hope we're not going to see the Pierre Poilievre of old, meaning he's going to make drama on the floor as he did with Trudeau for umpteenth sessions of question period, and just taking the American approach in terms of sensationalism on the floor, and that he actually does what he's being paid to do by all citizens of Canada: represent the opposition party and represent it well. No rhetoric, no Maple MAGA bullcrap. Be there for Canada, Canada first, and him second. Giving him the benefit of the doubt. This is his second chance in there. Let's see what the man does. Let's see what kind of an attitude he brings into Parliament once the sessions open up in the fall. Time will tell, Gary. I sincerely hope he's learned. I hope he can work well with Carney while Carney is driving a minority government, and he seems to be holding his own and then some, being first time prime minister and first time in the political sphere. And you know what? So far, so good. Aside from the pun in Southwest, he's moving along, and incrementally, small steps maybe, but he seems to be moving along. And we'll see what happens in the next month and a half. All considering what's going on in the world, and especially down in the United States with the inconsistent leadership down there. We'll see what happens, but I really hope they can shake hands, welcome each other to the new session, and get to the business of running this country.
And the role of the opposition leader is to hold the government's feet to the fire, hold the government accountable. But you can do that without what we witnessed in the last couple of years in the Commons.
The theatrics.
With Poilievre, with Trudeau, and with Singh. We can do without that. Let's be serious. Yes, you can trade some barbs back and forth as you're holding each other accountable. But by the same token, let's do it in a reasonable, mature manner.
Yeah.
in a way that you would in a boardroom, so that we can arrive at some kind of a consensus, and you know a piece of legislation can be made better through back and forth negotiations, and let's do what's best for Canadians and what's best for the country in the long run
Yeah.
without the partisan politics. Okay, that's great during an election campaign and on the summer barbecue circuit. But beyond that, that's it. Like, get into the House and let's do the business of the people of Canada, regardless of what side you're sitting on. You were
Correct.
sent there with a job to do. So I that's just the way I feel about it. I'm hoping that we see a more business-like, I guess, approach, more mature approach from Poilievre than what we witnessed in the final year or two of Trudeau's reign in the House. And Trudeau was really no better than Poilievre when they
No
got into
better at
it.
all. No.
Yeah, I somehow I can't see Carney being dragged into it, and hopefully he won't. Hopefully he won't, and maybe pull Poilievre aside or call him in for a meeting or a coffee at some point if it starts going in that direction, and just say, Pierre, come on, give your head a shake.
Yeah,
Here,
exactly. I mean, we have Carney there, totally different style, much more mature approach to pretty much day-to-day business every day, whether it's the politics, whether it's showing presence in the country, or showing strength while he's meeting with all the premiers and leaders of our territories. In dealing with the United States of America, and what are we going to do to expand our horizons with the rest of the world? And it takes a mature, smart businessman with the economy experience that he has. I think he'll be able to eloquently deal with Mr. Poilievre. I think he's going to invite him for a beer. Hell with the coffee, he's going to have a beer with him and say, "Listen, for the next 3 years, you and I have to get together and run this country in a bipartisan fashion, because the stakes are extremely high. The stakes are Canada's survivability in the world today and the unpredictability of the world." And I think Poilievre is smart enough to realize that that is the important thing. And I think you were bang on, Gary. You know what? Give it 6 months before election time. You know what? Hats off, hands off, gloves off, go at it. And that's what makes our campaigns extremely interesting and informative. Go at it. Now is not the time, guys. You know, you got
no.
to make nice, run the country. I really hope that Pierre Poilievre does his job and holds Carney's feet to the fire, as you said, and that'll make sure that there are checks and balances in place in the minority government. Even if there was a majority Liberal government, the checks and balances in place to attend to the business of running this wonderful country of ours. Throw the rhetoric out the window. Don't make love to a microphone or to a camera. I know he loves his camera time. Stay away from that. Do business, move forward, and let's see what the next 3 years has for us. Well, I'm looking forward to September rolling around.
Now, speaking of the West, out to the West we go with Joe out in BC. Don't hold your breath, Eddie. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, and PP is a junkyard dog.
Ooh. Coming from out west. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Well, there are people who feel that way. I've watched clips over the weekend of, streeters, and it brings up another issue of parachute candidates. There were a lot of people that they talked to out in that riding that were questioning Poilievre just jumping in because it was a safe conservative seat. Mm-hmm. And they were questioning, like, is this really right for this to be allowed?
Yeah.
And especially, I think what helped to drive it home this time around, two things. The first thing was how soon it came after the general election. in
Right.
late April. And secondly, and more importantly, these two brother yahoos who are fronted the longest ballot committee group,
Right.
and they had 200. There was a total of 214 names on the ballot, including Poilievre
Yes.
and Critchley and that. Most of them, though, didn't live in the riding.
Hmm.
They made light of some videos popped up, and this one right-leaning broadcast I watched the other night. They had some YouTube videos of these guys who went and had all kinds of blank nomination papers signed with the signatures. And then they just, when they found somebody who said, okay, you let my name stand, they'd fill in a name, which is
Right.
not how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And one of the brothers, the reason why they removed the $1,000 fee was he went to court and challenged it and won. And you know what? It's got to come back. It has to come back. What happened out in that Alberta riding was bull crap. And what happened in Toronto, St. Paul, what happened here in the Verdun area last fall.
They got to put a stop to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is an abuse of the democratic process as far as I'm concerned. And anyone involved in it should really be held responsible, and that would include some kind of a fine.
Yeah. How do you prevent it from happening again unless somebody gets slapped really hard, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think Poilievre has said, because he got hit twice in the riding in Ottawa. They had 90 some odd people. Remember, a 6-foot ballot?
Yeah.
This time around was a 7-foot ballot. But he wants to get the Election Act changed to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And I totally agree. They have to, and they should make that one of the, let's not shelve it and let it gather dust. I know we have a lot of other important things that we're dealing with right now, but somebody has to look after that and get something in place before the end of next year.
Yeah.
Because remember, we are in a minority parliament, and at some point there could be a confidence motion, and Poilievre and the Bloc and that, band together, and away we go. We're back in an election campaign again. And if the changes have not been made, we're going to go through this foolishness again.
True.
And it's an abuse. It's just an abuse. It's an
Well,
abuse of a democratic right.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you know what? We've had protest parties in the past, but they came across as protest parties where every riding had essentially one candidate with the protest party. The Rhinoceros Party is a perfect example. If you want to protest, do it exactly that way, in a formal way that actually follows election laws, and stop looking for loopholes like we saw in Carleton. We just saw in the Alberta by-election. That's unacceptable, and I'm with you 100%. The government's got put laws against that, slap penalties against that, and I'm not talking about a slap on the hand. They got to send a clear-cut message that this is not the way we conduct business as a democratic country. It was a crap show that should not have happened. So I understand the frustrations of Pierre Poilievre or anybody else that has to endure that moving forward. They got to get rid of that.
And here's a question for anyone watching right now, or if you're watching the replay after the fact. I'd like to really get your opinion on this, and that is, if you're in Battle River-Crowfoot or any riding where you have a parachute candidate come in like that, do you think that that candidate is going to represent your riding? Do you feel that the riding will be well represented by a parachute candidate, and especially a candidate who is a national leader? but any parachute candidate, how do you feel about it? Do you think maybe that it's time that we put an end to that as well? And because really it's more or less a courtesy formality that's not really written. There's really nothing, there are no guidelines. Carney could have dragged his feet on calling the by-election. He didn't. He could have played politics that way. And, or he could have just let things drag on forever. He had to call the by-election within a certain time, but he tried to call it, he called it as quickly as he could.
Right.
So there's that. But really, with the parachute candidate, do you feel that they're there for a brief period of time, they get elected, and they're going to forget about you? And by the time the next election rolls around, they're going to run in their own riding again, and there's no continuity there. Would really like to know. And we've got a few more comments coming in, so let me push a couple of magic buttons here and bring it up. Okay. Steph Joven, in my humble opinion, Pierre Poilievre would have made the best PM of Canada. It wouldn't have made a difference for Alberta. Alberta for independence will be my vote on a referendum. Okay, and just to follow up on that, I'd be interested in hearing why you feel that an independent Alberta would be more beneficial than remaining in the Confederation. And if you have a minute, just to give us a quick outline of why you feel that way. I'm really interested to hear. Okay, and then Joe comes back with, that's right, Gary. How much time do you think PP will actually spend in Alberta? And he follows that up with, this is not a time for any internal distractions. We are still in the crosshairs from our friend, in quotes, down south. There is that as well.
Yeah.
But also it's one of those things where, and we're going to get into it in the second segment with the invitation from the state senator in Maine, and it was aimed at the Western Canadian provinces. And they're zeroing in for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Republicans feel that they could pad their seat numbers because of the conservative leaning of the West. And secondly, the resources of the West would be beneficial to the U.S. as well. And that's why they're focusing in. And of course, the Liberal governments over the years that we've had, including this last one, over the last 10 years, have really given a short deal to the Western provinces. They really have. And I totally get why Westerners feel forgotten, they feel isolated, they feel taken advantage of. I get it. I totally get it. And I lived in British Columbia for 2 years, and it was an eye-opening experience. And perhaps for me more than the average person, because I was involved in it as far as news coverage is concerned, and hosting a talk show out there. So you get a real sense of as to what's going on. So I get it. And certainly the West needs to be treated on a far more equal basis than what it has been over the years, and especially at the hands of Liberal governments.
Yeah.
It has not been a pretty picture, and it started with Justin's father, Pierre, that I remember anyway, growing up, and how he treated the West and energy policies. And I also get the feeling they have when they see money going out in transfer payments out of the West to the East, and provinces like Quebec getting transfer payments, huge transfer payments, and other things as well. And I've often said over the last year, Eddie, that we've been doing this at
Yeah.
times. Danielle Smith is starting to take a page out of the Quebec playbook. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, she's starting to take a page out of that playbook. And really, who can blame her?
And and understandably, very
Yeah,
much understandably.
it's worked for Quebec from Confederation.
Yeah.
We've been the spoiled child of Confederation from the get-go. And I'll probably be run out of town for that, but you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah.
But I get it. I totally understand where that alienation is coming from. And
And then there's also the risk. I mean, you look at what we've been through here in Quebec and the alienation of international business as a direct result of the independence drive here in this province. I mean, Montreal was the economic hub of Canada up until 1976, and poof, everything disappeared. And it wasn't just it wasn't a language thing at the beginning. International business and money, people were afraid of investing money in this province because of the uncertainty. And you know what? As much as Alberta are looking at a possible move away from the Confederation, they should. I mean, if Danielle Smith is taking the page out of Quebec in terms of her drive moving forward and trying to gain independence for Alberta, she really should sit down and take a look at the history and the drawbacks of doing something that, because Quebec is at the same, it's an economic powerhouse. So we have such diverse industry here. It's incredible. And we are still not at the level of international business and funding as we were back in the 70s. No way we're gonna recover that. So you know what, Alberta has to take heed and learn from the lessons that Quebec has suffered from with their drive towards independence. Can you do it alone? Comes the question, right?
Yep. And now we have a provincial party that's in the lead as far as polling is concerned over the governing CAQ, and that is the PQ, and they're talking already about a referendum if they gain power. And here we go again. Now, I was watching something the other day, and there was some polling out that shows that a lot of the younger population in Quebec is now leaning in favor of another
the under
referendum.
35s.
Yeah, which is scary, because if you think it's hard finding a job now in the current situation, they start waving that referendum paper around and start that separation talk again. And you're going to see a massive...
The uncertainty is going to drive money away. It's going to drive talent away. It's going to drive our resources away. So again, what's happening here, I can see a similar consequence with any province within Canada that looks at leaving the Confederacy, the Confederation of Canada. Can you go on it alone while the rest of the world decides on whether or not, should we invest our money in a place of uncertainty? I mean, Quebec has been debilitated by this whole question, right? And you know what? I agree with you. I completely understand Alberta's position. Mr. Jobin's comment, I completely get it, 100%. You know, I just really hope that the leaders of Alberta are really, really moving on this, not just from a point of emotional quests, not just for a question of, oh wow, we're now the country of Alberta, which would probably soon end up being the 51st state of the United States. What are you going to do for the survivability of the culture of the Albertan and the economy of Alberta? You can't just rely on oil and a few other industries in terms of livestock, agriculture, and whatnot. You have to be extremely diverse. Alberta can be that, is that in a lot of areas, but you are really dependent on people just continuing to pour money into your province, and not just for oil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. With that, we'll put a hold on the political side of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party and see what shakes out once he's
Yeah.
sworn in and once Parliament resumes in the fall. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because there are a lot of questions now that the Prime Minister has to answer.
Yeah.
And he's also getting some heat for the fact that the meetings that took place in the White House the first of the week with Europeans and Zelensky and Trump, that we were not there, we were not represented, and there are some questions about that. Why?
Yeah.
I doubt very much that our friend in the White House, is going to pick up the phone and call Mark Carney anytime soon. I think he is just fuming on the inside because we did not cave in
Yeah.
on the deadline, the trade deal deadline.
You know what the correct move would have been? To include Canada if there wasn't any ego that was bruised. If you're there to drive towards peace, you bring in all the resources that can assist you in driving towards peace. And Canada definitely would have a chair at that table if it was that. But like you were saying, he's pissed at Canada, and he'll not invite him to the dinner table anytime soon. And you notice you're looking at some of the other nations that could have contributed to that. Australia could have contributed to that, but he hates Australia as well. So they're not invited to the party either. So you know what? It's unfortunate that we weren't at the table, but the individuals that were sitting around him, I think, well represented a lot of the shared interest that we have as Canadians with the Europeans that sat beside Zelensky in strength.
Alrighty. So we'll leave it at that for now, and we've got another interesting segment coming up, and that is the invitation from a state senator in the state of Maine to Western Canada. We'll dive into that one in a moment. But first, are you still searching for a Canadian solution for your cloud storage, so you can say goodbye to OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud, or Dropbox? Try Sync.com, a Canadian-based cross-platform cloud storage solution. They have competitive plans and are covered by Canadian privacy laws. Check out the affiliate link below and sign up for a free 5 gig account. And by the way, they're not a sponsor. They're not paying to sponsor. But if you do sign up through the link down there, I think they offer like a couple of extra gigs of storage or something. But more than anything, I know I was searching around for a Canadian alternative. I found it, and any of these Canadian alternatives for the technology that I find, I'm going to pass along and share with you. So that's why we're doing it. All right, Eddie, over to you.
Yeah, well, Gary, as you mentioned earlier on, a U.S. state senator wants Western Canada to join the states. Is it a joke or a warning sign? Maine State Senator Joseph Martin penned an open letter inviting Western provinces to consider joining the United States. It touched on frustrations around alienation, resource politics, and federal-provincial tensions, among other things. It also adds fuel to the debate on Western separation. How would you respond if a U.S. politician invited your province to join the states? Is it the letter just political theater, or does it touch on real frustrations in Western Canada?
Wow, here we go with the frustrations of Western Canada. First, I want to just roll down here and bring up, is it this one? No, wrong one, sorry. Where did I put that? Oh, down here. Okay, let's do this. Let's bring up, where'd he go? This is the U.S. Senator from the state of Maine, Joseph Martin, and he wrote a four and a half page letter, and he sent it to one British Columbia MLA in particular, and we'll get to him in a moment. But it was quite the dissertation. And it starts out, and this part of it is from the first paragraph or so of it. If the Canadian provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba were to seek admission into the United States, it must be as full American states, not provinces with conditions of dual allegiance. They would come into the fold by the consent of their people and the invitation of a constitutional guided republic. There would be no hybrid governance, no special culture carve-outs, and certainly no Canadian political baggage. Like you're in all the way.
Right.
But it goes on. He talks about, some of our diversity programs. He talks about multiculturalism. He talks about our healthcare system and how much better it would be in the United States, and just a host of things.
Yeah.
And if you have the chance, and I'll try and post the PDF of it. There's if you go to the Night Talk Facebook Night Talk YouTube page, there's one tab that's marked Community. And I'll try and post this letter, if you haven't had the opportunity to see it, there on the community page for Night Talk. But I read through this, and I could not believe what I was reading, that this guy would have the gonads to send that kind of a letter. And it landed on the desk of a British Columbia MLA. And let's see now. Here we go. And it was Brennan Day.
Mm-hmm.
And he said his first thought was to just basically tell him where to go. And then he said,
Pretty much,
yeah, that's not the polite Canadian way of doing it. So he wrote a response of his own, and again, it's worth reading, and if I can get the PDF to post on that community page on our YouTube channel, I will definitely do that. But one thing that stuck out to me was your recent unsolicited proposal reads like a recruitment brochure for a political ideology, not a sincere offer to neighbors. While I appreciate the sentiment, I feel compelled as a Canadian and as an elected member of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia to respond clearly and unapologetically on behalf of my constituents. We're Canadian, proud of it, not confused, not for sale, and not going anywhere. And in true typical Canadian fashion, at the end of the letter, he apologizes. I'm sorry if this sounds abrupt, but...
Yeah.
True.
Well, you know what? That is a class response to a very, very, very belligerent letter from that senator. Very belligerent, very condescending. Yeah, you and I would have had some really nice choice words for the fellow, but I'm really happy that the representative out in British Columbia responded to him firmly, but in a very Canadian way. I could not believe the level of belligerence from this individual, and I'm 100% convinced he's picking up lessons from you know who. Like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? And I don't know if you've seen the video that Charlie Angus posted in response to that. I mean, he was he was funny, but he was straight and direct in Charlie Angus fashion. And in the way he put it is basically you're asking the premiers of 4 great provinces to commit treason. I mean, that's how he put it. And you know what? He's not that far from the truth, if you think about it. And well, we had one official in British Columbia eloquently tell him, no, not going to happen. I don't know what the response is, or if there are any comments made by the premiers or the leaders of our other 3 provinces, but I'm certainly hoping that they share the thoughts of this particular official.
I think that this particular story has received more play on YouTube and Facebook than what it has on mainstream media. I
Wow.
know there were stories, but not, they didn't really get into it the way that it's been played out on YouTube, for example, or Facebook. Just amazing. And Joe, do we each get a sidearm for signing up?
one
Uh,
for daddy and one for the kid.
yeah, geez, that's
Oh my.
scary in its own right.
But you know
Um,
what? All kidding aside, Gary, it's both serious, and as a matter of fact, it's very concerning and scary. I mean, is this what senior officials on a state level, uh, pretty much coming from, I believe it's usually a democratic voting state, where it's a 50-50, with that type of commentary coming out from a state official, it really is scary, because I'm sure those discussions are being held in closed doors, and trying anything to get Canadians to drop their guard, and getting citizens to encourage their political leaders and officials that maybe we should listen to the United States. I don't know. Look, I know we're going to have a piece later on common sense, but they walk among us. I mean, we see a lot of people bumping into walls in the United States. We apparently have a lot of people here in Canada that may or may not. I think probably a lot of people in Canada, more than you and I would like to see, share the vision of this Maine senator. And then again, just the same. I mean, didn't we recently have an entire delegation from Massachusetts and Maine come into Canada and basically say, we love you, we need your business, we need your tourist dollars, we need you to buy American products? And then you have this guy come out and send an official memo like that to 4 provinces in a sovereign country. Don't these guys talk to each other? I mean, I just don't get it. Or was this just a one-off of one senator who woke up in the morning, had a bowel movement, and had to get it off his chest? I don't know. But either way, it's scary. It does really scare me, Gary.
well, let me put it this way. It's just, again, highlighting the arrogance that we are dealing with in the White House and spreading out through the Republican Party and Republican elected officials across the United States. How
Mhm.
arrogant they are, how holier than thou they feel they are, and you're getting it from the president, the vice president, Lutnick, the trade, whatever his
Mhm.
title is, right on through to the ambassador to Canada,
Yes.
who's a real horse's behind.
Mhm.
And this is what, again, we're dealing with. And, watching Doug Ford the other day at a news conference, and again saying, oh, it was the day on Monday when he met with Carney in Ottawa.
Mhm.
And he came out and, like he was saying, I don't know how you can deal with this guy. There's, there's, there's just no way of dealing. And of course, Doug Ford is again pushing to let's start getting tougher with the tariffs, or reciprocal tariffs on the U.S. because this really, you have these border states crying because they've lost Canadian business, but yet they're not taking the complaint and getting their businesses to take their complaints to where they should be taking it and voicing is Washington and the White House. Put the pressure on. We're not going to do it for you. We're not here to solve your problems. You got yourself into this mess. You have to get yourself out of it. We're dealing with our own issues, including, I'm sure that the border state businesses miss our money. I'm sure they do. And that's really what they miss. It's just not us, really, when you get right down to it. It's the dollar. Let's call it as it is. That's what they're missing. But there's no talk about what kind of economic pain that they are forcing onto Canadian workers in the automotive industry in this country, in the steel industry, the aluminum industry in this country, and then smaller things throughout where there are tariffs on goods coming in that are not covered by the CUSMA agreement. And then even then, that's just a piece of paper sitting on the president's desk, really, which at any moment, like Doug Ford says, get up in the morning and the cheese slips off the cracker and he'll just throw that agreement into the trash can.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm glad to see we don't seem to be wasting as much time and energy right now in Washington as what we were, because the return on investment, as I said a couple of weeks ago, there's no return on investment.
No.
There's none. And even if you do get an agreement, who's to say a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, it's
not worth the paper again. It's written on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I see Melanie Joly is traveling again, and she was in Sweden, and she was meeting with a couple of companies in Sweden, and she said she was going to be talking or having a look at a couple of jet fighter manufacturers over there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, because there was an article I glanced at the other day that indicated that a number of countries that had agreed to buy the F-35 fighter jets from the U.S.
are
now reassessing that plan, and rightly so. And I know that the military came out with a review that is leaning to let's stay on course and buy the planes from the States. But I'm suggesting that we really need to give that some sober second thought, big time.
Yeah.
Before we get locked in on it. But the nerve of this guy, Maine is not the most economically sound state in the Union. Don't you have better things to focus your time on than writing 4.5-page letters or outlines, whatever the hell you want to call it, and sending it off to a country that is your neighbor, has been your ally, and wading into our sovereignty and into our internal debates? Really? That's the best? That's the return on investment your taxpayers are getting for the money they're spending on your salary and your office and everything else that you get, the perks that go with it? I'm almost speechless. Almost. Yeah. Not quite, but almost.
Have we heard anything from Alberta regarding this? I would have thought they would have been the first ones to maybe make some sort of a comment.
I'm not aware of anything in particular. It seemed the coverage I saw over the weekend focused more on this BC MLA who actually took the time to address it and send a response. and he published the response, an open response on Facebook or X. I think it was on
Mm-hmm.
X, and then it was picked up and it was all over Facebook all weekend. And the senator, I believe, posted on X as well originally. So I maybe the other MLAs didn't see it, they didn't hear about it, or they chose to ignore it.
Ignore it, yeah. Too politically sensitive at this time, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, it could very well be. You know, it's hard to say, but um, yeah, that's there. Like I say, it seemed to get more play on YouTube and Facebook than what it did in the mainstream media. Okay, Joe comes in. It is truly scary. I've read many sentiments from a segment of the American populace, MAGA, that has complete disdain for Canada and want to take us over. And here's the thing, like in some of his response, the BC MLA pointed out the fact that yes, our healthcare system may not be the best at the moment, but you don't have people going bankrupt from having to spend time in the hospital like you do in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
How many stories have we heard about people?
Quite a few.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're looking at the divide between the middle class and the ultra rich in the United States. I mean, I did some research on this. A cheap insurance plan, baseline insurance plan, private insurance plan for a family of four will run $25,000 US a year. When you're struggling to put food on the table, you need to shell out $25,000 US to have insurance, which probably might not cover everything you need to be covered. You know what? We're covering this kind of kidney cancer, but we don't cover this one. Sorry. That's a lot of money when you're looking at a family that barely makes $60,000-$70,000 US a year. So you know what? There are, let's call a spade, Gary, and I like using that term. There are a lot of beautiful things about the United States. Their medical system is not one of them, unfortunately, and there's a lot of ugly things going on down there, unfortunately, which kind of superimpose some of the good folks that are down there and good things in the States. But their medical system is absolutely scary, and that's something that Albertans should consider when they're going to have to look at whether or not they want to go off on their own, and how far are you going to go in terms of disaligning yourself from Canada and potentially aligning yourself with the United States of America. And from what the picture this senator posted, forget about Albertan culture. I mean, he said it in black and white. And I'm sure it's not an isolated thought process coming out from this senator. I would bet my next paycheck that these conversations are probably not far and few between in terms of this is what we want from Canada and let's keep on pushing for it. That's a scary part again,
Well, it is, and I was just looking at a couple of things here. Past the 51st state discussions of the president in the past year, Saskatchewan's Unionist Party.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they were involved in it as well, and they've always died on arrival. Public and political support remain minimal. But it does raise questions of sovereignty, regional dissatisfaction, and the strains in Canada-U.S. relations, even if tongue-in-cheek or performative. And some liberals in Maine, Democrats, criticized this letter.
Yeah.
Like I say, don't you have more important things in the state of Maine to worry about right now?
Yeah.
Than what our Western Canadian provinces are doing or what their concerns are within our federation?
I think they
Really?
also have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. They're up in the top 10 in the states, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Maine has, especially northern Maine, southern Maine, down around from Augusta, the state capital, down through Portland in that
Right.
area. Of course, very urban and doing well. But the rest of the state, especially as you come up through the north and approaching even their border with Quebec, it's very very sparsely populated and I won't say poor, but you know there's not a lot of work available in those areas. A lot of it would be related to woods work and of course farming and things like that. Um, and I think, well, Holton is one of the larger communities in northeastern Maine, and it kind of leveled off because there was a large Air Force base at one point in
Hmm.
Maine, in up in
Right.
that area, and that housed B-52 bombers, and it closed a number of years ago. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's one of those situations. I'm trying to think of an area that would be similar, and nothing right off the top of my head, but
Right.
the southern part, as you get down close to New Hampshire, the border of New Hampshire, and going, down the eastern seaboard, heading to Boston, um, more heavily populated and more urban in nature
Yeah.
and businesses and things like that. So, anyway,
But your
it's
point stands.
pardon?
Haven't you got bigger fish to fry than
Yeah.
looking across the border, right?
Well, exactly, exactly. So let's see. We have one more comment here before we close off this segment. Joe, funny statement considering the so-called culture down south, or lack thereof. Joe, you have
Never at a
such a
loss for
way with
words, is
words.
he?
That's for sure. That is for sure. Okay. All right. So I think what we'll do is get to the next segment because
Mhm.
somehow it seems to tie in nicely with this particular segment.
Good segue.
Yeah, exactly. But before we do that, let's just quickly talk about this, and that um, is your US based web hosting plan coming up for renewal soon? Do you want a solid Canadian alternative offering web hosting, email, domain purchases, and more? Take a look at Web Hosting Canada, WHC, a Montreal based company. I've been using WHC for 4 years and the service has been excellent. Click the affiliate link in the description below to check out their plans and pricing. And again, they are not a paid sponsor. I'm just passing along the information. I've used them and am using them, and I cannot say enough good things about the service that I have received. So there you have it. All right. Let's move along. Has common sense become uncommon, or is it simply changing with the times?
And overregulation to viral absurdities. Many argue common sense has disappeared from public life, whether it's bureaucracy, cultural shifts, or online echo chambers. People feel simple solutions are being replaced with overcomplication.
When was the last time you shook your head and thought, so much for common sense? Do you think social media is partly to blame for the decline, or is it something deeper? Well, Eddie, we should have some fun with this one.
Yes, they walk amongst us.
How often do you hear me going on about
Oh,
common sense?
yeah, yeah. And Gary, I don't know how, you know what, you and I have spent countless hours over coffee and maybe a splash or two just debating the common sense of people in general, from politicians to leaders of countries to business leaders to politicians in the provinces, state leaders, and the generational common sense issues that you and I continue to see on social media platforms, on mainstream media, mainstream news, and you look at uh, our generation. Okay, fair enough, but you know what? You look at the younger generation in terms of staggering loss or staggering lack of common sense or common sensibilities when it comes down to discussing even the most simplest of things that you and I would consider a norm of life to know about certain things. Just it's scary from one extreme to the next. I think for the older generation, it's probably more related to the maturity levels and the whereabouts of what's going on in your own backyard, in your city, in your province or state or your country. Just a complete oblivion, not realizing what's going on around them. And then you know, you look at the kids coming out of school nowadays, and you know what? I've actually caught a few that had no freaking idea where Ottawa was, in what direction Ottawa was in respect to Montreal. And these are college students. I mean, we have them here. There's a hell of a lot more down south, but we do have them here as well. So I relate that not just to an education thing. This is just the capacity to use common sense and establish what's important and what's not important. And then be in a better position to say, hey, you know what? 1 + 1 does equal to 3. You know what I mean? You and I have spent so much time on this, and in our first two segments, I mean, we were just bouncing on the water and not diving directly into this doesn't make any sense. Like, aren't you using common sense? But pretty much every one of our shows delves into common sense issue, does it not?
Yeah, or lack thereof.
Or
So,
lack thereof. Yeah.
yeah. So let's set the foundation for the discussion, and we really want the viewers to weigh in on this again now. If
Please.
you're watching now, or if you're watching a replay later on, leave us a comment as to what you think about common sense or lack thereof. And just to put a little plug in, the more comments we get, the more it helps to get us pushed out to other people who may be interested in this type of show, stream, conversation, and so we get more people involved. And that's what we're hoping to do, is get more diverse opinions. So anyway, let's. I thought I would do this, Eddie. Just
And you say it with a smirk.
well,
Go ahead.
I just had to know
Yeah.
how you define common sense. So,
Mm.
who better to ask than my executive assistant? And so, my executive assistant, Chat, came up with this. The definition: the ability to make sound judgments in everyday situations based on practical experience, shared social norms, and straightforward reasoning without requiring specialized knowledge. That means a blend of practicality, making choices that fit circumstances, and shared understanding, drawing on what most people in a community would see as obvious or reasonable.
Pretty simple, isn't it?
It's so straightforward,
Oh, yeah.
so easy. Now, I suppose it's almost very political in some respects, because it leaves a couple of doors wide open as to straightforward reasoning. Well, straightforward reasoning, your thoughts or definition of straightforward reasoning may differ from my thoughts of straightforward reasoning and thoughts on it. How do we define specialized knowledge? Is it specialized related to a profession, a trade? I don't know. I don't know. Practical experience, I think I can zero in on that. Okay, that I can
Hmm.
associate with that. Shared social norms. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Shared social norms. Social norms, I would suggest, all over the map. And of course, I guess it depends to a degree culturally what would
Hmm.
be a shared slash acceptable social norm. So, it comes down to the practicality and shared understanding and making choices that fit the circumstances. So, the common sense is such a wide ranging, sort of holistic kind of thing that we're dealing with, which then leads us to this. What is the role of technology and social media in amplifying
The,
nonsense?
the lack of common sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Well,
I,
and there's also the question of consequences of a lack of common sense or not using common sense to to come up to a decision and doing something silly, doing something wrong. If there's no consequence to that lack of common sense, what's preventing that individual from not repeating it? Am I making sense?
mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm. Well, I totally believe that the evolution of social media, and I think we really should be calling it toxic media now, um, has really led to a decline in our society as far as becoming online warriors behind screens and keyboards and becoming very toxic in comments and responses. Certainly that's 6 years ago. Those were not accepted social norms. And our attention spans, and I read an article yesterday that was quoting a study, a new study that's out, suggesting that in fact our attention span is becoming even shorter thanks to TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
YouTube Shorts now, and Facebook Reels, you know, in those cases. And just before we go any farther, Deborah and Monel, you're testing out that new feed for us, but I think that we're not getting the comments from you. So if you want to flip over to the regular Facebook feed, feel free to do so. And if you want to weigh in, get your comments in. And I just figured out why we're not getting comments from there if you've attempted to comment. And I'll explain it after. Anyway, yeah. So I fully believe that the computer age and the age of social media in particular has led to an erosion in what we have accepted in the past as common sense. And in that combined with, we have people now who have grown up in an age of more than two or three TV channels to choose from, more, like carrying a computer in their pocket every day, and having access to the world really, with the click of
Yeah.
of a of an iPad, a phone, or a computer. Really. So I think that we're on a very slippery slope right now as far as this sort of thing is concerned, and like I really worry about that at times as to how it's all going to end up, and what will it mean to the generations that are coming up. So,
Yeah.
okay,
And
so let's.
but then, Gary, you're looking at how often have you and I actually said, sometimes with a smile and sometimes with a look of complete utter disbelief, and we say, "What were you thinking?" I mean, like, somebody ends up in a horrible car accident because they decided to do 210K in a 50-kilometer zone. That is a what the hell are you thinking? A politician with a major faux pas. It's like, what were you thinking? Um, and you kind of wonder if it was an actual mistake. Was it an actual blunder? Or was it a question of lack of common sense driven by impatience, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge? And there are some humdingers out there, and there just seem to be more and more and more of them. I'm not saying, once a month conversation. You and I can have a conversation about what the hell were you thinking every day if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And what is driving that? I'm going to do a little research and see if there are any kind of studies that actually speak about the use of common sense or the lack of judgment or whatever the case is, and what potentially drives that. Is it can't happen to me mentality? Oh, it's not that important. Oh, what if I do this, who's it going to hurt? If I say this, what's nothing's going to happen to me, which comes down to the consequence thing that I mentioned. I just love to know. It just boggles the mind, and I'd love to know more about this.
Part of it is, I think, Eddie, there is sadly there is a lack of consequences and accountability,
Mm,
and it's happening more and more. Before we go down that rabbit hole, though, Joe says common sense, critical thinking is like the movie Gone with the Wind. Technology and political correctness
correct
play into
display.
it.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point, especially on the political correctness. I agree. Okay, well, they're here. They're
Oh,
back.
they're
We
back.
found them. Yep. Okay, good. So jump in and share your thoughts, ladies. Like I say, I'll explain it later as to what I think I know what happened there, but thank you for monitoring that for us. All right, Joe's back with, where are we here? I feel it's ironic that technology was supposed to bring us closer together, and yet I feel it's dumbing us down. It is, Joe.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is starting to dumb us down. And here is the rabbit hole I was going to go down. And that is, are you ready? Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we talked about it a few shows ago.
Yep. But, just looking in the last 2 weeks, the number of upgrades that have come out, ChatGPT 5.0, which is really a jump, or 2 or 3 jumps ahead of the last models. And um, they've made it available even to the free tier, although it's very limited in the amount of time you get with it in the free tier. But it's faster and it's going to evolve even more. Uh, Google with Gemini, and they also have an AI studio now, AI Google Studio.
Right.
And you can do some very limited video with it. You can create some very limited voice clips. They haven't, at least in the free version, and I'm only looking at the free version just to see what they're doing. But they don't have the ability in the free version yet of creating like a talking head sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they rolled
Wow.
out about a 60-second video at their big spring conference, and if you watched it, you would not be able to tell the difference. It's that
Yeah.
good. They're at that point, so it's scary. But what's it going to do to like the kids in school, and how are they going to use it? Are
Yeah.
they going to be, even the teachers are really just getting used to it themselves. How are they going to guide the kids? And of course, the kids will be, all over the place with it.
Well, there
So
was an
Monel says,
article. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, just let me get this caught up. Monel says, between technology and selfishness, I have a right to walk here. I don't care if there's a bike or a car coming. The car's the same thing, bike's the same thing, and it's just saying.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And she says, where are we here? We can definitely blame technology, but we can also blame the selfish culture that we're in, because we are truly in a very selfish culture.
Hmm.
A lot of food for thought on that one.
Yeah. Selfishness prevailing over common sense.
Yep. And then Deborah comes in with, when I was in school, using a calculator was not allowed. Right.
Yeah.
Remember when calculators
I remember that.
kind of went
Well,
mainstream?
yeah, and that's what I wanted to allude to before you went on to the comments. I saw an article, and I can't remember from what source today, which
Mm-hmm.
basically says, "Oh, parents, by the way, your child is doing their homework with AI. Now what?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I mean, are they using AI to do the adequate research and then use their own interpretation in terms of what they're writing down? Or are they using AI just to get through it as quickly as possible so they can get back on their iPhones and look at the 15-second videos? Probably the latter. Good
Yeah,
chance it's the latter. So that again, like you were saying, it's going to drive the lack of common sense as we move ahead in time, right?
yeah. Well, and the other question is, have we lost common sense, or is it just evolving? Well, I
Well,
guess you could say
what does
it's
that mean? Even
evolving.
evolving. What does that mean? Are you getting
Well,
better at common sense? Or you're
well,
becoming less sensible about things.
well, yeah. We're evolving into a lack of common sense. It's like
Wow. But is
much
that?
the
But is
same
that?
as the
But is
the
that
tipping.
evolving?
I,
I always parlayed evolving to going in a positive direction.
yeah.
Usually.
Well, here's the thing. Like again, tied into the overall concept of common sense, experience based reasoning, applying
Hmm.
lessons from lived experience rather than technical expertise. Well, if you don't have any lived experience because you've relied on the technical expertise, such as the social media and now the AI,
Yeah.
are we going to lose lived experience in a lot of cases?
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. Philosophers sometimes frame common sense as, are you ready for this? Quote, the wisdom of the ordinary person, the default reasoning we expect most people to have.
Very simple. What a simple
It's,
way of putting it.
it's too simple.
Yeah.
And yeah, the default reasoning we expect most people to have. Are we getting to a point, though? Is it moving to a point where we are no longer expecting most people to have default reasoning? Is there a generation now that's coming up with the AI in particular that will not have default reasoning based on lived experience?
Well, I'm trying. Boy, this is getting heavy.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I walk out of my apartment, and somebody's walking right at me, and I would expect the person would have enough common sense to avoid me, just as
Good
I
luck
would
with that.
try to avoid that individual, right?
Uh,
I mean, that's something that I would expect people to have common sense with. You avoid each other so you don't collide into each other. Or common sense, you kind of say hello to somebody as they're passing by, Well, common sense would be, well, you say hello back. I mean, something to that effect. What would I consider non-common sense? My walking towards somebody and the person is walking towards me, decides to clothesline me. Well, is that a lack of common sense or a lack of judgment? But so I guess as a default, based on what you just said, there is a common expectation of a baseline level of common sense. But then what you're saying is, how do you acquire that baseline common sense if you don't actually experience it with people, right?
Yeah.
Wow, this is heavy.
When else
I
is
think I'm gonna get my sniffer of scotch.
when else is we
Wow.
can't do that. We have to teach kids how to use the technology that's out there, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean it should be allowed to do your homework for you.
Hmm.
Uh, but what are the consequences if they don't get caught? Joe says it's more like devolving.
Evolving. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, again, it comes back to, like I say, what are the consequences? Well, if you don't get caught, and in a lot of cases, you used to pay the brightest in your university classes to write your paper for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't
Now
get caught.
you don't have to get that extra case of beer or whatever.
Yeah.
Have the change ready for the person, because you just pump it into chat or Gemini or any one of a number of them. And again, of course, I was a great fan of Cole's notes in my years through, I guess, what's now called middle school and into high
Clifton
school. And
notes, Cole's notes. Yeah. I remember those.
yeah, I the books, like the books they'd give you to read, who in the hell would spend time reading those books? I couldn't get past opening the cover. And so, like, as soon as I found out what book it was, I'd head right to like the drugstore or
Yeah.
Woolworths, whatever had school supplies, and Cole's Notes, and
Hmm.
grab the Cole's Notes version and prepare. When I did take it upon myself to prepare a book report, I would do so with the Cole's Notes. And all of these years later, do I feel like I missed anything? No, I don't actually.
No, but you know what? That helped you. You actually came up with a solution to your problem, and you used common sense to get to your end means, which is producing a book report through any means possible. Okay, maybe you kind of snuck around the rules a little bit, but you got
I
the job done.
massaged them. I didn't sneak.
You
I massaged.
well,
I
you
like
massaged them.
massaging things. Yes.
So that was different to what you and I are seeing right now, where at the push of a button and after entering a sentence into AI, there's your entire book report. You didn't write it. You didn't type it up, probably. It's just
Nope.
there. At least you, when you did your book report, you have to write it out. So obviously, you've learned something. There's. I mean, hey, I got a problem. Let me go to AI. No
Mm-hmm.
creativity, no thinking. Look, I'm just as guilty using it as anybody else, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just too old for this. If I was in my 30s, I might be doing the exact thing we're saying doesn't make any sense. Going to AI, getting my report, and then going out for a beer with my friends. I don't know. I don't know what to say. If I was in that situation as a 30-year-old right now, would I not use AI to save time?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Right?
something. Uh, I've got some other things on the go,
Mm.
and actually my EA has been helping with some of these other things. It's just from a research standpoint, just boom, 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 and I go through and double check it and everything. Of course, it's putting out where it's sourcing everything, so you can go in and double check it. But it can be time saving in that respect. And if you're not using it in that way to your advantage, then you truly are missing out.
Well,
Well, now
that's a
says,
tool. You're using it as a
yeah,
tool.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Gary, when internet first started and kids were doing their homework based on that, teachers actually had tools to find out if it was being plagiarized. I'm sure it can be done with AI. Oh, listen, Manel, some of the stuff that AI writes, if you're not careful, because we all have a certain style. And if you just copy and paste what AI puts out there for you, it's very evident very quickly that little Gary did not write that. That's not him. And then you're kind of going, oh, yeah, okay. So I got caught. I do know that there are some universities that have the tools to ensure that AI is not writing papers for you. I think it's called limiting the internet.
Yeah.
No, I know there are probably now some tools, as Manel said, being developed to deal with those sorts of things. You know, it's been what? At least almost a decade where some form of AI has been used by large talent recruiting firms to sort through resumes looking for keywords, sorting through and picking out the ones with the keywords as potential candidates for interviews and everything. That's been going on for a long time, because now there are all kinds of options
Well,
out there.
that's very high end software that was put together by developers, probably over from India or over in China. But I think the AI component is that what differs today than back 10 years ago. I mean, is obviously that AI is self-learning. It learns. And like, Manel is right and you're right in terms of, there are certain styles of writing that a particular student might have. Well, you know what? If you submit a good 10 summary essays to AI, it's going to learn your particular writing style. And with every subsequent essay or every subsequent document you produce, it's going to produce a document more and more around your writing style. And I've actually seen that done.
Well,
it's going to get tougher for them to catch it.
Here is the scary part, Eddie. And you hit the nail on the head, because AI is learning from us.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about the lack of common sense, or common sense disappearing. And with that, which is, learned experience, right? With that declining or devolving, as Joe put it, what we're feeding into AI. Think about what we're feeding into to AI, what it's learning from us in some cases.
That's true. Is it? Well, that goes to something I said. How do we teach AI right from wrong? How do we teach morals, good and evil, to AI? And then by the same token, how do you teach AI the difference between common sense and non-common sense? Like, yeah, exactly. Doesn't that blow your mind? Oh my goodness.
Wow. Who knew that this common sense would just go off on its own like this? So many questions and so many answers to be found. Where are we going to find them?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It is scary. So with that, Eddie, I think it's time to call it a night.
Mm-hmm.
And a wrap on episode 47 of Night Talk, episode 47. We'll keep following the stories that matter, from politics to everyday life, bring you conversation that's honest, unfiltered, Canadian, the conversation we should be having.
And remember to like, share, subscribe. And if you're watching the replay or on-demand segments, keep the conversation going. Leave us a comment. This all helps YouTube expose our stream and channel, exposed to more people like you. From Montreal, I'm Edith Kallick. Good night.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. Night Talk returns in 7 days. Good night.